right, what's up, guys? Nate and Phillip back again with the PokeTalk podcast number 29. What's happening?
Hey, pretty stoked. We hit a big milestone.
Yeah.
Didn't think it would. It pretty much coincided basically a year, honestly. So at this point, pretty much a little over a year. Because the first two episodes we didn't really have a lot of listens, just because we were just kind of like trying to get the word out. So yeah, we basically had 1,000 listens in the last year.
Heck yeah!
So you moving on up to the east side. No, I'm pretty excited for that. Thank you everybody who still continues to listen to us. We appreciate it. It lets us know that we aren't wasting our time and just talking to each other and recording our conversations.
Well, it's like, even if there was hardly anybody, like literally no one, it's like, that's kind of what we set out to do, just to keep a way to keep us engaged and give us a reason to keep up with Pokemon every week. So it benefits us just by doing it, even if no one cares.
It does.
But there's been some people who have enjoyed it and reached out. So
yeah, I will say that definitely has helped me maintain interest in the hobby, because there's some times where there's like some slow times in the hobby, like during the summer especially, and I don't exactly have my full focus isn't on the hobby. I mean, it's kind of like ancillary, but this kind of helps recenter me into that and keeps my attention within the hobby. And it still does, even during this like very slow point of the year that we're in right now. So it still keeps me going for sure.
yeah, I'm definitely in a drought right now, like just super burned out. I've been wanting to make more videos this year and like get in a habit, but then I was like, well, I'll start in February. Well, I'll start in March. And now I'm just like, I'm just going to see how it goes and just, take my time with it. Just get the confidence, I guess you could call it, back, or the, inspiration is really what it would be, just to kind of get it back, and just when it comes to me, it'll come to me. But today I kind of felt a little itch, but
yeah, like I bought a big card, obviously the last minute went up to Yeti, which I guess was technically mid-February. So that ended up being like a $300 card with a few smaller illustration rares I bought. Nothing really notable, just some ones that I liked. And that was like my last big purchase. And I kind of went ham though between December and like late January. So I guess you could say this is kind of me just taking a breather as well. Or you could argue it's because my main obsession, like we kind of discussed in one of our earlier episodes, how obsessive we can be with certain hobbies, and for right now, that is 100% reading comics. But just because I might talk about that doesn't mean I haven't forgot about Pokemon. I keep it in my attention mostly at all times.
yeah. I talked about this too. It's like, I did all that work with Lorcana, which is like the hardest I've went in a long while. Like those 2 weeks where I was trying to flip those 10s into 9s. Like, I talked about how crazy that was and how much work I had to do for that. So I think that's what led me to be burned out, because I also got, the last piece of that. I think I told this too, that Captain Hook with a damaged case. That actually came in today because I got the reholder service. So I got me a nice clean case with a PSA 9 Captain Hook.
Awesome.
So that's kind of what sparked it back today. And then I realized, like, man, I just got burned out, like when I was just doing all that work and just going hard for those 2 weeks. But got the Captain Hook reholdered, got it back, and took about a month. That service is a little longer than the grading service, just because it's, not grading, it's just reholdering. But real happy with it. Case is looking nice. My set is back together again.
Awesome.
And I still have that stack of cards that I've talked about back from PSA that I want to sell. It's kind of like reminiscing about those 2 weeks before Christmas once again. It's like, do I really want to grind it out and sell these cards and buy another big card? Like, yeah, that's the goal. But, I mentioned I'm probably just going to keep a big stack for Collecticon to try to sell there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that, along with your stack of cards you're selling, is what spawned this episode. We are going to talk
Oh
about
yeah.
how to sell, where to sell, when to sell.
How to how to deal with shit buyers.
Oh, man. Yeah, we're going to just. I'm going to use it as an
Uh,
opportunity to tell some stories about my
mm-hmm.
experiences.
Absolutely.
Um, and yeah, you're definitely feeling some of those now.
It
But
was yeah. Honestly, I won't go too much detail. Just kind of do a brief general sentence. I have never had so many sketchy, sus buyers in such a short time frame ever since I've been doing this. Like I
yeah,
was messaging you. I was like, is this for real? Like, but that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say about it. We'll go into more detail here in a bit. And I would say, yeah, the update for me with my part in the hobby is obviously my main focus, especially with a lot of money, has been towards comics. White Knight represent. You know that story if you know that story. But there, my I also got kind of burnt out a little bit, but for something a little bit different. It was essentially I was so obsessive over the Mario Pikachu that it was intense. And we've kind of went over this before, and you mentioned it's like I was kind of, I think, starting to annoy you a little bit with like the constant price updates. Um,
for
but
those wondering every day. So I did the math. I could do this, I could do this, and a list of things, and I could potentially pull trigger next
it's like
week.
Charlie.
The next,
It's like Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
then the very next day. All right, I was fudging some numbers, like saying the same thing, just wording it different. I'm like,
It's
all
like
right.
it's like that meme from Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's got like a cig in his hand and he has his chalkboard with all these drawstrings. Like it looks like it's like a cracked out conspiracy theorist, and that's probably how I looked running the numbers constantly. And I think that's kind of what did it. And then I finally went to Yeti. I got the card. I got a solid card that I won for the collection with the 2016 World Championship card, and I've also I've been able to focus extremely well on my goals, which is the Grails, either it be with Lorcana or Mario/Luigi, or in my binder sets, and seeing the numbers that is happening with Lorcana, and seeing like where just kind of fantasizing of where those numbers could reach has made me extremely patient in terms of my goals within the hobby. So patient, the fact that I'm okay not spending a dime. Um, However, I say that. Then I will also say I haven't gone to the local card store that we have here in town, and they don't have. They usually have just ultra modern combination of Japanese and English, and usually it's a great way to get great deals on like illustration rares, character rares, and like there'll be like character rares for like $3-4, and I'm like, oh, I'll just buy 20-30 bucks, I'll get like 15 cards,
Mm-hmm.
and they're great art, and I love this. I'm participating in the hobby, not going bankrupt, and I'm getting cards that will absolutely also increase in value. But I also have cards that I like, so it's great because it's like, oh, I'm not just pissing away in the wind. I'm actually buying stuff that I think will do well, but also cards that I can appreciate for the time being, even if they don't. And so it's kind of a win-win. It's one of those things where there's some cards I might kind of like, do I need that character rare? No, I'm not the biggest fan, but it's only $3, and that's probably a future $10 card, and I'm having fun, so I'm just going to go ahead and buy it. Which is a great way to participate in the hobby, not worrying about FOMO or hype. Just buy it at the all-time low and just enjoy it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what I'm doing, pretty much now until basically Pokemon 151. Like that's probably the next product I'll be buying. So we're talking what,
Yeah,
4 months away?
I'm excited to see that. Um, yeah, I mean, it'd have to be something good for me to buy it. My minimalism really keeps myself in check with that. Like, yeah, the character rares are nice to buy, but unless like I go for them all and have like one of each, which there's already too many now. It's like
Hmm.
I'm an extreme minimalist and an extreme completionist, so it's like I either want it all or nothing. It's
Yeah.
like
So you.
so yeah, I kind of avoided that, but I still have that stack of cards to sell. You know, I've said that I was going to wait to get those cards back to decide what I want in my collection. Well, I still haven't quite decided, but pretty much everything, like I said, that's a set card is on the chopping block. Um, I've even thought about like seeing exactly how small I could get my collection just for fun of it. Like, even if I get it down to like 5 graded cards and just have like 5 insane PSA 10 cards, like I could be happy potentially with that. I just have to figure out what cards I like the most. Like obviously, First Ed Zard would be one of them. So it's like, do I consolidate all that money into upgrading my Charizard or buying a new Charizard? Because I'd probably want to keep the one I have now because it's, been with me the longest. But I just need to figure all that out, and I need to sell the stack of cards. So probably won't be making much content or anything until I knock that out, and that potentially won't be done unless people hit me up on Instagram until CollectCon. So
So wait, you're just talking about graded cards, correct? Not your binder sets, just graded cards.
yeah, I still have binders, and I
Yeah.
did
Okay.
buy the last hollows. So my binder sets are 100% complete all the way through the Neo Destiny. So I went ahead and bought the last hollows I need with some of that money. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, my binder collection is still there. The E Series hollows are the only cards I'm missing for WotC, but I've never committed to collecting them. I have none of them. Going back to what I said, all or nothing. I have nothing of the E Series hollows. So that's a potential. Just throwing the money in other investments is a potential, or buying slash consolidating big cards is another potential.
Hmm.
And I probably won't know the answer to that until summertime, what I really want to do. But I'll let you
Yeah.
guys know. I will be selling the cards though, so I've made a post on my Instagram. If you see any on there, let me know. I probably should post those every couple of days, but I've just gotten real lazy with it. I've just been totally checked out and burned out, but
Yeah. I kind of feel you. Not so much burnt out, but to an extent, but just not really feeling the stress of selling my cards because if they aren't low value, they're ones that I kind of like, so I'm in no rush to sell, especially considering I'm going to be getting hit with the fees and I'm going to be getting hit with like the tax aspect of it, and we'll go more into it later. But me selling cards to sketch people isn't worth being losing out on the card, even if it's just a $30 card. I'm not going to let them win.
yeah.
And I have no stress to sell, no desire. I've already hit the profit that I wanted. This is just cards I'm just trying to basically sell to more or less go towards a grail card. That's pretty much. So it's just like I'm very, very patient with this. And at this point, kind of seeing where the Mario Pikachu's at, it's like I no longer feel stressed with it. I kind of have an idea of what I'll probably be by the fall. So it's like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to be patient. Patience
Yeah.
is a big thing in this hobby. If you can have patience, like true patience, you can do very, very well in terms of your cost basis on stuff, in terms of your overall lack of impulse buys over cards that you are falling into FOMO. Or not even necessarily FOMO, but just kind of like a hive mind mentality to an extent, depending on who you're following in social media with certain cards that folks are going after. So it's patience gives you a lot of power. It really does, especially in a hobby like this.
Yep. So, and yeah, that's what I've been feeling too. Like, no rush to do anything. It's just kind of see where it goes and slowly sell these. And worst case scenario, finish it at CollectCon and should
Hmm.
respark my interest there. because that's always fun. There was a Mario Pikachu PSA 10 that sold by Nick, old school Pokemon, last week. It is at $4,450. So when I see that number, I'm like, well, shoot, I could just sell my
Did it sell?
9. Yeah, it's went to
Oh, did it sell?
auction.
Okay. Okay.
So that is pretty much right at market. So 4,500.
Yeah.
So that's got me thinking, well, shoot, I might just sell some of these cards and sell the 9 and get the 10. But I usually don't collect 10s. But if I got my collection on a diet, like that might be the world that I look at. But
Well, I say that makes the current going rate for about anywhere from like 2,000 to 2,300 for the PSA 9 Mario Pikachu about right. So now we're at the right point because the tens and nines weren't equating with what the prices were going for, and now it looks like the market has caught up. So
yeah,
that's
it
pretty
has
good. At
adjusted
least,
for sure.
yeah, because we were chatting about that. I was like, this value isn't matching what these tens are going for. So, but yeah.
Yep. And I already forgot what I bought my 9 at. But let me see if
I
I
think
can
it's like
check
twenty two
real
hundred. I
quick.
think it's like 2,200 or $2,000 or something.
But yeah, another reason for the burnout, though, is the news cycle. There really hasn't been much. So we're going
Yeah,
to hop
go ahead and
into the
go into news.
news. Yeah, there isn't much to talk about. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, on Poke Beach, though, I was just scanning. You know, they have an article on different wording for switching Pokemon. So that's
They're
exciting.
hurting. They are hurting for
Pokemon judge
content.
receives lifetime ban for harassment. So
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's a bad guy. Probably deserved it.
yeah. No, he did. I actually read the article,
Oh, did
and
you?
yeah, yeah, it wasn't exactly good for him. It was like I won't go into it, but like, as if you could read it. But basically, the guy was like asking questions because he was interested, and then he started being condescending and insulting, and then he started to basically more or less follow them to a restaurant and continue to be insulting slash like very insulting and very sexist with a lot of stuff. Yeah, it wasn't like there wasn't
Hmm.
any like like maybe it was some miscommunication. No, it was yeah.
Straight up potential crime to be done.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, like they're like the guy has issues. Like he should have known there was going to be consequences. But yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, the biggest, I guess the top two news articles we have. Um, they have one real quick. This isn't one of the two, but they had a list of the hobby store freebies of top loaders, postcards, and more for Scarlet and Violet. So Pokemon's trying to load up some hobby stores to give out like merch for the Pokemon drop when it goes into Scarlet and Violet. So that's kind of cool. They're trying to, enhance the experience for in person. But yeah, aside from that, Galaxy Holofoil and Galaxy Borders are returning to Scarlet and Violet promos. This is exciting. They look
yeah,
really awesome too.
yeah. This is a little bit of like these cards, like in English. Well, actually, it's not English because I just realized the Arcanine doesn't have an E. It's something else. So I think that's maybe Italian or French. I don't know. But anyways, it looks really, really great. It looks like the old school cards from the EX era, and I think this kind of making me the quality control. We'll see, but I mean, it's the sort of thing where you would potentially collect English because of the way it looks. It looks very close to the Japanese equivalent. And have you noticed this Mimikyu EX when you go down? How unique this promo is?
Which one? Mimikyu?
Yeah, EX.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that one's very neat.
It's
Like
like the
that is
borders
very
disappear and are dissolved.
Yeah, and it's got like this. I don't know what this even is. It's some sort of. I don't even know what's coming up. What's bleeding off the card. But it's very cool looking. It's very very neat.
Yeah.
And this is something to. This is the stuff that they have to do for the English market because it was lagging so far behind from the Japanese quality. And this is getting good. I'll say that. This looks great.
Yeah, it's the first time we've seen the Galaxy hollow borders since the the OG EX era. So Gen 3 and 4. So that's pretty crazy. In 2003 with EX Ruby and Sapphire, and it
Mm-hmm.
only lasted until 2007 Power Keepers, and then that's pretty much it. In the Call Legends set, they had like the shining cards. There was legends that were shiny, and they had a hollow border pattern, but that's literally it. So yeah, pretty cool. The I wonder if the Galaxy is on the English because yeah, it shows the other language there, but then at the bottom it says so far all the Scarlet and Violet promos have been printed on the set's hollow paper. So it's like a hollow border, but it's just, like no ink on it. It's just blank. So that means the hollow paper itself is going to be Galaxy. So I don't know, it's going to be cool to see what they do. But either way, there are versions out there. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it'll be
I
pretty
think it's
cool.
something you'll see more of. But yeah.
Yep. Just showing us that, anything's possible. People
And that's
people
sort.
thought there was like these weird theories that WotC owns the rights of the hollow Galaxy paper or something weird like that. There's been all these kinds of twists and turns. Um, but Wizards of the Coast actually brought it back recently with Magic and some of the basic lands in one of their sets. I think it was the end of last year. And people were kind of, oh my god, what does this mean? They're bringing back the Galaxy Hollow. And then here's Pokemon doing the same thing. So, yeah,
Yeah.
which if they do own the rights to like that specific Galaxy pattern, I mean, Pokemon probably just made their own, changed the pattern. But it
Ever
doesn't,
so slightly.
yeah, it doesn't look like as dense as the WotC Galaxy on these pictures
Yeah.
that they show. But who knows? Maybe it's the exact same thing.
Yeah. I
But
said the only other news item that we have is basically by the time you guys, well, a few days after this episode goes live, Scarlet and Violet will have released for English or for the English market,
yeah,
and there's some cool cards,
yeah,
neat
they
cards,
have
but nothing crazy.
they have a complete guide on Poke Beach, kind of talking about all the cards, and you can see the full set
Hmm.
list there. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is some really cool stuff, but yep, just another set.
Yeah, the big one is the special illustration rare or whatever that of Miriam.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that card. The moment I saw that card, how unique. So I have a really great thing towards like geometric shapes and like my photography and very straight shots. If you can't tell, Wes Anderson's my one of my favorite directors because of that.
Yeah,
That straight shot with like the symmetry, and this has a lot of that with the different, almost like comic panels in the background, sort of thing. Great art looking card, but and the rarity plays a part in it, but they're also aware of the waifu collectors, which are I have my own opinion on those folks. Something we will talk into in a later episode. But yeah, there's nothing like in this set though that really speaks to me personally.
yeah, it's cool. It'll be fun to open. But yeah, I don't buy modern and open packs, so I mean, it's not
I mean, there's
really.
some cool art in here though with some of their illustration rares. There's some cool Tauros, not Galarian Tauros, Pandine.
Yeah. What would happen is I would open it and like, oh, this card's really cool, and find out it's worth $20. Probably sell it, and then I have this stack of other cards that are not going to be worth anything for 50 years, and I'm just going to get rid of them somehow because I don't like holding them.
That's been my thing too. Is with opening, you have the bulk.
Yeah.
You have like the bulk that builds up, and it's now just for 1,000 cards, you get $15. And like just do the math on how many packs you have to open just to hit that, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
like,
almost a burden
$15.
for me. I know it sounds stupid, but it almost burdens me to have the cards. Like, it burdens me to open the pack because then I'm like, I'm consuming this, and now I have worthless paper, and now I have to get rid of it, and I just hate opening, and just having all that plastic kind of bums me out. But I don't know. Then you can, look at the flight map of all the private jets leaving the Super Bowl and, realize me caring about that's kind of stupid as well. But
yeah. Oh, it's Triple Beat. Yeah, it's Triple Beat's the cool set. That's going to be the cool set. That had the Paldean Toros. I was mistaken.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Just want to give a shout out about that Magikarp with our boy Shinji Kanda.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't think I said, but I bought that Mario Pikachu for $18.50. Is what?
Yeah, and you bought it before the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you didn't have to pay the sales tax. Now you gotta pay sales tax.
Yeah. I also saw when I was looking up, I got that Captain Hook for what was it, $7.50?
And now they're probably like around 1,200. I think most of the nines are around like 1,000 to 1,200 at this point. Most, not all.
I think
but yeah.
Like, that's the one, obviously, to just talked about it with the damaged case. I bought it, and then he gave me like, oh, okay, that's what it was. So I bought it for $8.50, and he gave me like 100 and something back, so it was almost like 700 is what I ended up paying for it, because he gave me the money to like grade it again if I wanted to try, because he thought it was a good condition card. And so ultimately I decided to just reholder it instead of regrade it, which was a lot cheaper. So just got it back today. It's the 9, looks great. Pocketed another $100 there. It was really cool of the guy to do that. So yeah, really like 700 is what I got that for. But I also did all those trades and stuff like before the cards went up again, because that's something we didn't mention. Like, over the past 3 or 4 weeks we've been watching these, they're still slowly ticking up.
Slowly, but they've been steady since the initial release announcement, or like the release date announcement. So I expect they'll be steady. There might be an uptick this weekend after they kind of show the product line and the price, and that's kind of starting to make its rounds. I'm starting to see on smaller FB groups starting to be posted. So here we are, about 5 months out exactly from the release date, and the hype is already starting to build. Let the beat build. And then
they're showing a lot more on their socials too. Like, they had a really nice video today, basically showing the contents.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, and of like the unboxing, like it was all animated. Showed you exactly how it was packaged in the box and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's pretty excited, but still not too much to say with that just yet, and we'll see what happens in the next coming months. And then, yeah, there's really not too much else than with the news. What was the last thing? There really wasn't anything, was there?
No, I don't think so. Yeah. That was pretty much it.
Boring.
We've rambled as much as we can ramble. We made 30 minutes out of it.
Hey, there we go. You guys get quality content from us all the time, just so you know.
To hear us repeat ourselves every week.
It's like those Family Guy episodes where they just try to see how much they could get away with basically dead airtime with like some of their gags. You know what I mean? Like they would do 2 minutes over something completely stupid, and it just like really. So they wasted 10% on one gag that literally was just like probably cost them like $20 to make because it's just like the same scene on repeat. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're doing for you guys.
But with that, I guess let's hop into the main topic and talk about some of these sales. So, yeah, when, how, why to sell your cards, we'll cover them all. So,
Yeah.
I guess, and obviously the where. I guess we could just cover the where first. Talk about where
Okay.
we sell, where we buy. Um, then we can get into like the why or the timing, and then maybe we can do some of our stories. So pros and cons.
Yeah. So where I buy my cards depends on what I'm going for. Um, so if I'm going for binder sets, I'm pretty much going to TCG Player. That's the best place, and I don't think there's really any question about completing binder sets. You can go through verified sellers, you can go through the TCG Direct, which is like verified sellers, and they a lot of times like they'll be able to ship it off like in pretty much one unit essentially, so it helps conserve on shipping. Um, and I've done that a lot of times. That's how I completed a lot of my sets, and it's just a really fun thing to do. Kind of going crazy, going searching what you need. Like, okay, go through the buyers. Okay, this guy's legit shop has 50,000 plus sales. Okay, get here. Near mint or lightly played. Okay, since it's a shop with that many sales, it's probably legit. Go ahead and get it. All right, you know. So it's one of those things where you stay away from the guy that's got like 10 reviews and no photos and demands the highest price. You know,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where those with low ratings on TCG Player, if you're trying to sell with low ratings on TCG Player, you're gonna have a bad time. It's not a place I would recommend for that. But TCG Player is where I go for buying my collection cards, and the return policy is really easy to do. What is it like? You print out a form or something like that you got to include into your package, and you just send it back. And after so long, they'll at appropriate time they'll go ahead and give you your return. It's been pretty solid. It's very easy for a return. It's frustrating when it's like clearly off. Depending on what card it is, there was one time I made it was a Garchomp EX. So it was like $100 or so near mint or something like that. And it was there's like an imprint on the back with scratches. It should have been lightly played or moderately played. And they had it as near mint. So I was very frustrated. So I returned it. Like obviously near mint, you're not going to get PSA 10, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing to keep in mind. If it looks minty, it's somebody's probably sending it off to be graded. It's something else to consider. So unless it's like ultra modern. So with some of these cards, like I see some buyers like complain like it said near mint, but it was maybe a PSA 8. It's like that's near mint.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of naivete when it comes to the expectations of what near mint is, and it is not a gem mint 10. A gem mint 10 is something that's obviously the creme de la creme. It's something better than your usual near mint cards. But TCG Player is definitely great for buying a bunch of cards. You're trying to complete buyer sets. Maybe you're trying to get one specific card. Maybe your favorite Pokemon is, I don't know, Mimikyu, like you, and you're just trying to collect all these Mimi cards. It's a great place to just type in Mimikyu and just go to town. Very, very fun. It's one of my most fun times going through. I cannot wait when I sell my Lorcana cards and I can complete my binder sets because it's going to be incredible going on to that spending spree whenever I get that. So like delayed gratification is definitely what I'm doing with that. Now FB and Instagram, I barely buy or sell on there. I've bought a couple items. Everything was good. They were all legit people. Every time I do though, I'm very nervous. Yes, there's like PayPal and you can potentially get a refund and stuff. But you know what? I just don't like dealing with people.
Yeah.
Honestly, Like that's really what it comes down to me is this interaction with people, and there's because it's your own and then it's your own personal profile too, which is something else I don't like. And yes, my profile is on private, so it's like they can't see the majority of it. But the fact that they see enough is I don't like either. And yes, you potentially get it cheaper, but a lot of times they'll expect a deduction from the eBay fees, so you're really not saving too much, honestly. Like people say, like you're saving on these fees. It's like, well, when you're selling for 15% less, you really aren't. You're just it's better for the buyer is what it is at that point.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the seller. There's more risk as a seller in some ways, and you're not necessarily saving as much unless you are. It's a card you're able to sell at maybe 10% less than eBay. Then you are making more money and it's worth it. But that's kind of a context dependent thing. And I have only sold a couple of times through FB/Instagram, and it's something I don't really deal with. I've only purchased a couple times. I've only sold a couple times. I like, even though with the fees, you reach a larger market. Every time I post on FB and Instagram, it's like crickets, absolute crickets. Whereas with eBay, you get to eBay, you have more of a reach. You reach more people, and it's eventually you'll sell it. You just post it up there. Whereas I had to take down a listing because I forgot that I had a listing up. It was like from 8 months ago. People were somehow finding this listing and messaging me. I'm like, nah, bro, that was 8 months ago. But yeah.
So,
and then there's card shops. But yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'll kind of cover everything you covered. So, TCG Player and, like, Troll and Toad, sites like that, yeah, they're really good for making binder sets, especially if you're not looking for the best condition. Because, yeah, their condition is a little weird. So,
yeah, it is.
The main thing is, like you said, they'll list something near mint, and people will think, like, it's like gem mint. But yeah, in reality, near mint is like 7, 8. I think it's even 6, maybe. Like I can't remember what the 6th grade. It's like something to near mint or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking something different, but
yeah,
it's like so. Yeah, people's expectations are not that good.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally buy from those sites when I know, like, I don't care to have a 6, 7, or 8. Like, I only buy the listings that say near mint, but I'm also expecting like a 7, and I'm not expecting to grade it. It's only for binders, and that's it. So I avoid any disappointment. I've bought first edition holos off there, and I bought them so long ago that they've been fine, but in reality, should have probably went to eBay for some of those. But so you learn there, you kind of learn the condition. But yeah, as far as Facebook and Instagram, I really like selling. I pretty much don't post on Facebook just because I don't mess with Facebook too much at all. But on my Instagram, I like posting things. People seem to trust me enough to even do friends and family for smaller stuff. Those who don't, I get kind of, weary as anyone else, but it is through PayPal is how I do it. So you are kind of protected there. I always try to send an invoice so you can PayPal sees you charging them for something and then them paying you for that thing. And so then it's kind of like eBay. You kind of have the buyer protection. So you can send an invoice to someone. I highly recommend doing that rather than just, having PayPal see this random money come to you for seemingly nothing. So if you're doing business transactions, really try to do an invoice. They do have their fees and all that. So it's kind of like a fine line. It's like, well, do I just post on eBay instead? Which I like doing. The fees don't really bug me that much unless there's an opportunity to sell it in person, like CollectCon, like I talked about earlier. In that situation, I'm holding on to those cards because I know I'm going to CollectCon. It'd be easy just to sell them in person, bargain, haggle, possibly trade, because I'm sure I'm going to see something there I like. So just for the fun of it is why I'm keeping that. But it doesn't bug me to sell on eBay with the fees because they are, as you said, extremely convenient. It's the best platform by far if you want to get eyes on it. Everyone's looking on there. And it's my preferred way to buy things as well. Um, you do have to keep an eye out for the sellers who you're buying from. Make sure they're established. If they are lower on the feedback scale, look at their other items. Um, Most of the time, I do that. Like if someone has less than 100 feedback and I look at their other items, it's like a random mix of collectibles and other cards. So that's a good sign. You know, it's just someone just doing this small time, trying to make a little extra cash. Um, Here recently, buyers from or sellers from Japan have gotten a little weird with promo cards. So I would almost throw that into something, which I guess this is kind of already jumping into it a little bit, but I would throw that in the category of something to look out for. Look out for these stores, and it's not just Japan, but it's like these big store chains. So there for a while, maybe it was just a hype thing when everyone was buying things up, but I remember seeing this Japanese seller, like less than 100 feedback, but it was like a card store, and they had tons of other card listings for sale. And you'd buy the item or bid on the item, and they're like, oh, well, we don't actually have that in this warehouse. It's in like another warehouse. So we're sorry for the inconvenience. We have to cancel. So I don't know what the deal is with all those. I've been trying to avoid them. It's like a giant network of multiple eBay accounts, multiple stores and warehouses, it seems like. That is just a real pain to negotiate with. Lots of canceled items and stuff like that, which, you know, it's not really a risk of getting scammed. It's just more of an annoyance. Um,
Yeah.
I know Troll and
Honestly, that's
Toad
a
was dealing with that too. Like you'd order the card, they're like, "Oh yeah, we don't have that. Sorry." It's like you had it in stock on your site, but you know that was also during hype, and I'm sure they were just getting bombarded as well.
mm-hmm.
So
Because a lot of times when it comes to, I don't know how they run their inventory, but like it's a possibility where if you sold it in person and it was listed on their online store, that they potentially didn't take it off. Because I know this occurred with Yeti Gaming. There's a card that they only had one of, and it I bought that card, and 2 days later, like I remember Vince saying, like, "Hey, did one of his employees take the card off the inventory?" 2 days later, it was still there.
yeah,
So that's one of those things where when you got to manually take it off, and like you're like telling somebody to do it, and then they get busy, it can be forgotten. That might have been how it was, but I do know when it comes to the Japanese sellers, I've had a few issues with them as well. But the biggest thing is this is kind of one of the issues in the hobby itself. A lot of these Japanese sellers are choosing to sell on eBay because even with their fees and all that stuff, they're still making more money than what they would make by selling in their local shops. Because they're able to scalp it for 130, $150. Meanwhile, was it $50 now for a booster box, something like that? So their cost per booster box is probably somewhere between $20 and $30 a box. So with that in mind, just think about how much money they're making on each one of their boxes. They're tripling their money even after the fees and everything else.
yeah,
So that's an issue. And then you're seeing kind of from posts on Instagram from some Japanese buyers that they can't get any because they're selling all their stuff on eBay. That's kind of something hurting the Japanese. And I wonder if that's one of the things that Pokemon took note of and one of the things that they were doing well. And they end up making our cards better because of that. I wonder if we think like Pokemon is actually doing this for their English audience. Like, oh, they're being such bros. They're listening to their audience, but in all reality, it very well could be, oh, we're screwing over our Japanese consumer base. Let's make it to where the English don't have the Westerners don't have the desire to buy the Japanese product as much.
yeah, for sure.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little column A, a little column B. To be completely honest with you.
Yeah, it's definitely changing. Yeah, for more pros, if you do have a store like Yeti Gaming in the St. Louis area for us, or Collector's Cash, you guys may have seen them online. They're Kansas City as their home base, so that's pretty close as well. Yeah, check out what they have online. Both of those stores for us, they have big eBay accounts, and you can see what they have. You can see what they have on their websites. So you might be able to get to know them personally since they're local if you have one in your area. Card shops are always great. Unfortunately, like I think I see card shops as more of like a bargaining type thing.
Yeah.
Um, because they've kind of been getting the shaft lately. If you're not like a huge store, product has been kind of hard to find. So if product on the secondary market is more expensive, I know sometimes they have to mark it up just to make it
Mm-hmm.
worth it or just to keep something on their shelves. Like a box might be selling for 120 online. They might have it for 140 just because they don't care to sell it. It's like they got to keep something on the shelf because they don't know when they're going to get new stuff in. So
Yeah.
it's been harder to find bargains like that, I think, unless you're looking for singles, like especially modern, where there's plenty of.
Well,
But yeah, I don't know. I don't really go into that realm much.
it's one of those things where you're also, if you're a smaller store, it's one of those things where it's harder to find deals nowadays. I'm not saying necessarily Pokemon. This is kind of anything, right? Like, so with the internet and the informational age, a store like Goodwill or I don't know, just any other store where you take a look at a price of something, it's like, oh, it's going for this online, and I'm selling it for 20% of that. What am I doing? So you obviously, if people are paying for this online, you match the price or you come within 15% of the price. Because people, what other choice do you have? Oh, it's going for this online. Well, I'm 15 to 20% cheaper. Instead of it being 20% of the overall value, you have 8% of the going market value. What's the desire for what's the need for the business to lower the item, especially when there's very little competition in the area? It's one of those things where to find these deals, quote unquote, it's kind of harder because it allows folks to sell at that going rate. And it just kind of is what it is. There's any sort of collection hobby, you have that. Anything that involves a whatever the going rate is for the market compared to steals. Gone mostly are the days where you can find a hot game for like $5 and it's $50 online, even though it's a used game been out for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Those days are becoming harder and harder because businesses don't have to because they have the power because they have basically supply and demand. That's exactly what it is. So when it comes to card shows and card shops, that's kind of a similar thing as well. And in addition to that, it's also one of those things, depending on what it is, on how easy they can get a hold of it with economies of scale, it's easier to sell. They have to sell at that price, as you said, to make money. They have their overhead to make. They have miscellaneous expenses. They're paying employees. So whenever people say like, "Oh my God, it's the same price as eBay or whatever," it's like, or it's like 15% lower. It's like, well, there's a reason for that. Now there is also the other side of the coin, like during the hype when they had more accessibility to certain products, but they were still selling it at ridiculous rates because a lot of the people that were getting the items first were more or less either the big LGSs or the big box stores.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where I don't really get offended by that. Like I understand, I really do, and I think other people should too. But what I like about card shops is a lot of times, like with Yeti Gaming, they took their 15% off from eBay, so you do save money. You do save for the fees, and it's cheaper than you would be able to get it anywhere else, more or less. The only way you can get it cheaper is if you're basically preying on a desperate seller that needs money fast. Like that's the only way you can get some cases cheaper at this point.
Yeah. Well, any other pros as far as buying or selling on either one?
The big one for card shops is you can do trade. That
Yeah.
kind of goes with card shows. Card shops are pretty much interchangeable. That's how I have them listed because they're the same concept, and you can incorporate trade, and that's the big incentive. So you see certain cards you want, or you're trying to get money fast. It's good for that because you can go there. It's almost like a currency in some, or like a currency exchange. Like you're not going to get full value, but you're going to get like 50% or so if it's fluid cards, and so you're getting money ASAP, which is the cool thing. If you're desperate for money, that's something you can do. Um, Something where like there's less fees, as I said, and just in general, you can include trade to put towards another item. I think that's what's great with card shops. And another thing is, I support card. You want to support your local card shops because if those businesses go away, you won't have those places to go and visit anymore. I'm very, very adamant about keeping money local if possible, and giving money towards small businesses like these smaller card shops. I mean, Yeti isn't small, but they are a small business.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm very, very like my comics. I buy almost all my comics from a local guy, a local shop, because I want these places to keep on existing. I want to be able to go inside these places and be able to shop. It's like I'm a kid when I'm in these places. I'm just enjoying myself, just having a good time. I want that to maintain. You don't get that with buying stuff exclusively online.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a factor. If you can fork it up and support them, that's definitely great. And yeah, it's it's not really wise that much. I don't think to open a card shop anymore. There are a lot of benefits to just building a brand online and just doing it online and turning it into like a YouTube channel or stuff like that.
You need to have
Without the
another.
costs.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, so it'll be sad. Like if we see the ones we have now start disappearing, it's a lot harder as time goes on, I think, to make something like that happen. But as far as the downsides, though, I guess I can just kind of go through the main ones real quick for my stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, downsides, dealing off of a platform like eBay or like PayPal with invoice, you do run the risk of, more, I don't know, sketchiness. It is nice on eBay that a lot of people are afraid to buy on eBay because they hear the stories of being scammed and all this. eBay has great protection, and you should not be scared of that.
As a buyer.
Yeah, a lot of people, I don't know, just get too weirded out. I just say go for it, and if something comes up, eBay usually resolves it. I can understand if you're spending like thousands or quite the hefty amount, but usually you're buying a lot smaller cards by then to build up your trust and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think you can talk on this once again about some downsides with customer relations. I think it's gotten worse after the hype. This is going to back your story up, but it's definitely gotten worse after 2020 just because of the sheer volume of people in the hobby has just exploded. And, people's experience and accountability has just had a new floor, and it's a lot lower than it used to be. So people don't care, like, oh yeah, I'll buy this, and 5 minutes later, well, I asked what I could get it for this other guy, and he accepted too, so I just want to cancel. It's like, just be a good person and, not annoying. Like, I just block everybody like that, essentially. It's just so annoying. But you see a lot more of those people, low feedback accounts, brand new accounts that just hop on to buy something. I don't know what it is But for cards under $50, I have exponentially more problems with that card value than I do cards over $1,000. It's like it's kind of a joke. I heard S. and Pratt say it before, but it's like, yeah, it's almost like a meme. $20 card. There's a little guy. Well, would you take 15 minus fees and ship it tracked? And then there's a guy who buys $2,000 card, just no problem. Like, okay, what's your PayPal? Here you go. Give me a tracking number. It's like I've experienced that myself so many times. Yeah, and I just think it's just the age or experience level of people buying cards at that level is just a different world compared to the experienced collector willing to drop thousands on a card. So, but yeah, tell us a little bit about your experience with that.
So this last week, the first one I was pretty stoked for. It was Thursday, about 10 a.m. No, but it was Thursday, and I had four cards, four quantity of the same card, and the guy bought two. Whatever, it was Umbreon. I totally get it. Umbreon's awesome, right? He bought two. Didn't have time to think much of it. I got the notification at work, and then I noticed about an hour and a half later, he got their notification. I was like, two more? No shit, awesome. And then I looked at it. It was the same buyer. And at this point, I went ahead and shot over a message. I'm like, hey, just confirming you want to make sure you meant to buy all four of these cards from me. Like, that was intentional. Because the thing was, it was like an hour and a half between buys. Like, it wasn't just like a minute and a half. It was, or like 5 minutes.
Bought again.
Yeah. And so obviously, first thing I do is I take a look at who I'm sending it to. One, rating feedback. Account since August of 2022. Okay, red flag is going off all over the place. The username that they had didn't make any sense compared to the name filed. It was like Leroy Jenkins or something like that. No, not really, but it's pretty much what it was. And then it was like ABQ Q969 or something like that. And I'm like, okay. One feedback. I sent out a message. No response for 24 hours. Okay, whatever. I sent out an error message. No response for 24 hours. I was like, okay, I'm canceling this order. And guess what? They never responded to me. But okay. A day after this initial transaction, I have another guy. Like, hey, would you do 60 for it's the PSA 10 semi-seer from the art rare from V-Star Universe. And I had it listed for 70. I was like, yeah, no, but I'll meet you in the middle of 64. And I was like, we do 62. I'm like, oh my God. That's like, if he would have said like 63.50 or 64, I probably would have said yes. But he said 62. Like, he completely ignored most of what I said. And
see, I love not being in the position, like, if I don't have to sell something, if they send me something back like $2 less of an offer, like, I just decline.
It's insulting.
It's like, dude, it's $2. Come on.
And I mean, you could say it for us too, but yeah, like we've said, I am not in a position to sell. Now, should I have probably sold it at 62 because it was kind of like mid of what I sold it for? Maybe, but I have a whole thing with maybe it's me kind of like I'm not going to be taken advantage of, but that's essentially what they're trying to do. They're trying to get the best deal possible. Okay, great for them. However, you're not going to be trying to step on me because you want the best deal possible. So he says, like, well, let me think about it at like 64.50, which is what we agreed to on, or 64 or something like that.
Let me think about those $2.
Yeah, okay. I'm like, okay. So then 45 minutes later, or an hour later, he went to me again. It's like, okay, I'll do it. I was like, okay, I'll send the offer. I sent the offer. He bought it. He paid for it, everything. And I was like, awesome, great. And I was literally about to get home and ship it. And then I got a message like, hey, can you cancel that order? It was like 30 minutes or 40 minutes after he bought it. And I was like, why do you want me to cancel the order? Because somebody offered me for 61. I'm like, oh my God.
It's
I
like,
canceled it.
Dude, come on.
like I canceled it. I'm like, okay, whatever. I was like, you know what? I haven't had to deal with this issue personally when it comes to like having to relist an item so soon after the transaction, but I was able to relist it immediately, so I was pretty cool. But I told him, I was like, you know what? This really annoys me because there was three buyers on that watch list when I sent out that offer, and you bought it, and now those watchers are gone. So they, in theory, could have potentially bought it, but we don't know.
See,
And
that's my problem with it. Like, it depends what mood I'm in. So sometimes I'll just be
yeah,
like whatever and accept, and just blow them off. Like if I have a card for, if I send them an offer for 64 and they say 62 and they look legit, I'd be like, whatever, and just kind of laugh at them.
hmm
If it involves me messaging them, I'll just straight up decline. Like if I send them an offer and then they send me another offer like $2 less and they're like, well, this is the best I can do. It's like on those, like, I don't know, if I sense they're being petty like that, like I'll just decline. Cause yeah, you got
hmm
other people, like if I really care about the dollars like that much, like yeah, I could just accept and say whatever, but it's more out of principle for me because like that person doesn't want to spend $2 extra on this card. It's like,
what else? What else might he do?
well,
That is the
that,
first
and
thing that
then
came to
it's
mind.
like they should be buying this card for them loving the card, and maybe it's wrong for me to like apply how I buy cards because if there's a card I like and it's anywhere within like 5% of like market value, granted these are like cheaper cards, bigger cards have to be a little closer, but if there's like a card that last sold for 55 and I see one that's like 57, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'll just buy now.
It's not
Like,
worth the time
yeah,
for
it's
two
not worth
bucks.
the time for me to send an offer and for them to think about, because if I send them an offer, like I don't want to buy another one and continue looking, buy another one, and then have them accept and buy two. You know, it's
No.
not worth the time for that. It's in the other situation, it's not worth the time for me to wait on them. Like, I just decline, and it's like, let's just get a deal done. Quit making up excuses. Quit
hmm
fiddling here, fiddling there. If you like the card, get it. It's $2.
Okay. Now I relist the item because I was able to relist the item after all, even though his payment was still processing with this one. I'm like, awesome, that's cool. And so 45 minutes later, same guy. I thought maybe he wouldn't be like, oh, hey, I'll go ahead and buy it after all. No. So he already said he bought one for 61. He messaged me, would you do take 57? I am like, what the shit? Are you serious right now? And he was like, wait a minute, I just realized you're the same guy. Don't respond. I was like, I wasn't going to respond to your joker ass anyways. But so two things. One, he lied to me, which is whatever. He lied to me, and he was trying to get it cheaper because he saw it at a listing. He thought he had doubts. Two, the other option is he didn't lie to me, but he actually did purchase for that price, and he was trying to find it even cheaper, like for a couple bucks.
Yeah, and he might be buying them and then telling people, like, hey, look, this one just sold. Would you do this? And then buying that one, canceling the order. Hey, this one just sold. Would you take this? It's
Over
like,
a relatively common, or it'll be a common car in PSA 10 eventually. And
yeah, if he's
it's just
doing
like,
that, I mean, I respect the hustle, but
I
Jesus, it's
guess
like,
over $5 fucking dollars. I mean,
yeah, it's like you could be spending your time so much more better and you're wasting your own time. But if
on
those
one
$5
card.
are going to make you feel that much better, waste your
What?
time. Go ahead.
Just wait 2 more months, and the card's going to be a $50 card. Like seriously, like why put all this hustle and all this stress towards like this? Would encompass like 3 hours. Okay, who knows how if this was the only card he was doing this with, or if there's multiple cards. Either way, it's clearly a fixation, and you're clearly spending a large quantities of time over a few bucks. You know what? Opportunity cost is a thing. Spending 3 hours trying to negotiate a deal for $3 isn't worth my time to worry, stress, and have anxiety over for my opportunity cost when I can be enjoying reading my comics, out playing Pokemon GO, literally doing anything else besides trying to haggle with a stranger over $5. $2.50, whatever it was. I mean, Jesus. And okay, I'm still not done. This was all in the same weekend, okay? And then, so next day, or no, this was 30 minutes. Okay, I think this was 30 minutes after the last transaction happened. I had another guy message me over the Umbreon beanbags, the same ones I had to cancel. He was like, "Hey, I just bought the card. Would you do less?"
Like he bought it and then like, "Hey, would you take less for this?"
I was like, "Whatever."
Yeah, it's really frustrating dealing with that.
I guess I'll cancel it because you don't want to get a bad review, right? I was like, I'll sell it to you for $35, no lower, because I don't want a negative review. I'm not a big time shop. I can't have one negative review would kill me, so I can't do that. I'm like, okay, I'll do it for $35. And he was like, thank you. And I was like, whatever. No, not really. But I was like, okay. And then so 3 days later, I had another low feedback buyer buy an item, but this time he had zero feedback, no feedback, since like, and he's like been around since like March 2022 or like something. And I'm like, okay, but I sent this one off. Now you might think, oh well, man, you're crazy. Like, well, it's an international sale, so it's got to go through eBay's international warehouse, and it was going to Canada. I was like, you know what? Let that mofo try and say I didn't send the item, okay? It went through eBay's international warehouse, okay? I want him to try and pull that shit and see what happens. Because I know I'm good.
Yeah.
I like you're going to try to say I sent the wrong card? Prove it. It wasn't. They're not going to, are they really going to, I can't imagine eBay's going to, I haven't had an issue where eBay would side with a buyer yet. Because I have great packaging. I ship everything perfectly. I do everything right, so it's something I don't have to deal with. Yeah. And we'll to be determined on that what's going to happen with that buyer because I have no clue.
That's the thing, like shipping internationally, like eBay makes it really easy there too.
Mm-hmm.
Their GSP service is great. Speaking of, when you said that made me think of something that I went through when my PSA 10 grand party got damaged on the way to Germany or wherever it was.
I thought it was Indonesia.
Yeah, somewhere over there.
Yeah. Germany, Indonesia, kind of half a world apart.
Whatever. They're neighbors, right? Yeah, maybe Australia. I don't know.
Yeah, Japan.
But yeah, it was somewhere. Or no, it was Singapore. I don't know why.
I thought Singapore. Was, Singapore. I knew it was somewhere in that area.
Because I actually send a lot. I send a lot to Germany, Singapore, and what was another popular place? I don't know. Those two really stick out. Like a lot of sales. Oh, Italy, I think. It really random, but I've had multiple cards. Like for some reason, I recognize that stick out. But Germany and Singapore, especially, there's a lot of users on eBay trying to buy from there. But yeah, if you have something that sells through the GSP and you ship it out and it arrives damaged, it is on eBay entirely. As long as you get the item shipped to eBay and they say they received it and that it was shipped from their place to the buyer in like stage 2 of the shipment, like anything after that point is on eBay itself. And I say that because this person, let's rewind a little bit. eBay is supposed to take the item and like assure that, yes, this is the item, this is going to this person overseas, and then they ship it, following their own guidelines. I'm not sure what those guidelines are, but they ship it from their, I think, Wrangler or Wrangler or whatever the town is called, Kentucky. They ship it globally from that site. So they have their own protocols or policies or whatever how to ship them, but your job is to just ship it to eBay. And if you guys ever have a high dollar item that is damaged using the GSP, message me directly on Instagram or something, because it's kind of a gray area as far as like who you talk to. But eBay should cover the damages. Now, my item in particular was a PSA 10 Grand Party, which was like $2,000. The guy went through GSP. The guy received it damaged, like it was a crack down the slab, like it had got crushed or something. And you could take the card out of the case, maybe, but it was like a crack on the surface of the card. So who knows if the card itself got damaged. You know, if you regraded this thing, it could have got another 10, could have got a 4 if it had a crease on it from that. I just did not want to mess with that. So me and the buyer, who was really cool, we opened up a claim and we agreed, like, yeah, this is weird. Let's just wait. You have to wait a certain amount of time for eBay to step in. So we waited the however many days for eBay to step in. And, you know, that was open. They ruled it in favor of the buyer, like where the buyer obviously got his money back, but the case was still open between me and eBay. So they were just reviewing all the info essentially. And that's normal. If you're a buyer, that's why I say like you should have nothing to worry about. eBay sides with the buyers a lot. So they were just saying like, yeah, it's obviously not the buyer's fault. You know, here's your money, don't worry about it. Now let's resolve it with the seller because it might not be his fault either. So I ended up calling them just to kind of speed up the process. And the first lady I talked to had no idea what she was talking about. She was like, "Oh yeah, it's you pretty much have to just take the card back and accept the return, and yeah, you would just have to grade it again, I guess." Like it was like that. Like she knew the terminology, but she was just like, "Yeah, I mean, you have to accept the return, and
No.
you have to do it." And I was like, "Okay, like whatever." But I had already read on like some eBay forums about this whole process, and so I just called back and got another guy, and essentially talked to someone who actually knew the policy. And yeah, they sided with me. So that's why I really like, especially the GSP, just tell people like, just reach out to me. I'm happy to share with you what I did. Their customer service and like calling eBay is actually really good. You get through really quick most times. But I ended up doing like a messaging on the web, and then they called me and stuff like this. It was kind of like a little weird thing, but yeah, not all people at eBay fully understand the situation. And, you know, with that, if I would have just taken what the first lady said and just had to take the card back and lose potentially $2,000 if the card was damaged, like, yeah, a lot of people would say, "Oh, okay, like you're the eBay person. I guess I have to do that." But that's why I use every opportunity to go on this spiel of like, as long as you ship it to GSP, the Global Shipping Program, anything that happens after that is on eBay. So keep that in mind.
And I think that was pretty obvious that something happened post transit because of the way the box was smashed and everything like that. So that was pretty easy to go in your favor. Now, I know you mentioned before in one of the early episodes about a potential loophole, but I think that's very context dependent on this whole thing. Like, the only way it would possibly work if it was literally a thing between two buyers that knew each other or that were in on it for cahoots, that it could become an actual scam.
Yeah.
I think it's no way to do it with just random people to do it. But if you knew somebody internationally, you're like, okay, we're going to split the money and we're going to damage this card. and or damage his slab, and then go from there. But that's so the time to do it and the risk for it. There's better ways to make money, honestly. Like
Yeah, that's one
just
thing that I did think about. It's like, yeah, like, and obviously they paid the buyer back and they paid me back, so eBay just ate that cost because it was on them.
hmm
But then there's still a card. If that card got damaged and had an indention, like it's still $500 card raw. So it's like, who keeps that? So it's like, I just messaged the guy. I'm like, yeah, if you want to send it back, that'd be cool. If not, whatever, because he does not have to send it back. And in the end, I got my money back, which is all that I was worried about.
you
Or
wanted, yes,
yeah, not really got my money back. I just got the money for the sale.
yeah,
So like that's my intention anyway. I was just trying to sell the card. So maybe he cracked it out of the case and graded it again, and he got a 10 for free. Who
he lucked out.
knows? But yeah, that's between him and eBay. eBay can investigate that all they want.
hmm
If they start seeing that happening, they will be cracking down on buyers a lot more in that situation. But in this situation, though, he sent me a picture. Like I said, he was really cool. He sent me a picture of the package. He had taken a picture of it, um, like as he discovered this, and you could tell he like cut a little slit on top, and it was very obvious that the package was like, I don't know, it was just a bubble mailer. So you definitely want to be sending stuff internationally in a little better box, but the GSP is supposed to supply, with whatever they think will work. Like on the forums, they said people are essentially supposed to like inspect the item and place it in their own international box. But for some reason, this one just got thrown in. So maybe that's why eBay just kind of ate the cost because they didn't do that, or they're trying to cut costs. Either way, it's on
Yeah,
them.
and say to me, I would have put it in a box, like a small box, it's with like wrap. If it was a $2,000 going to Singapore, but
Yeah.
you know, it is.
Usually I do, but if they go through GSP, like just getting the card to GSP, like I'll just do bubble for everything because they're supposed to handle that on their end.
Yeah.
Um, because they usually box things. Usually sometimes I'll get packages within a box because that's the GSP. They're ensuring that it gets there once it's in their hands safely.
hmm
But for some reason they didn't with this one. But they ended up eating the cost for it.
Yeah, and I also wanted to say for those that have never sold on eBay, what makes eBay so great, you can is what I love about them. I know other places are similar, but it's easy to print out a label. Like they make everything for you. They make it so easy anybody can do it. You enter your bank account information because the money's got to go somewhere, blah blah blah, and then you go ahead and your address is in there obviously. And then whenever you sell something, the label's automatically made. You just have to pay for it. You don't have to go through them, but it's easier because a lot of times it's cheaper. It's like 15 to 20% cheaper than paying it through the actual USPS or wherever you're going, which is great because of that. So that's another pro also going through eBay is you can save a little bit of money when shipping as well. And that's something that I really like. It makes it so easy to ship anything out. It really does. It's like literally a click of two buttons. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I do have. We kind of mentioned this before as well, but we also mentioned the Japanese seller. Sometimes, like a lot of people were hesitant, especially when Japanese was becoming kind of a thing, like especially big amongst Western audiences. They were unsure about who to buy from, which one would be safe, especially for like a pre-order. And I'm like, listen, if they got a bunch of reviews and it's pretty much all positive, you're good, you're golden. However, for EV Heroes, I took a risk for one buyer. Whenever I bought all my boxes, and I knew the guy only had like a 4 review, but I was like, you know what? It was cheaper than everybody. I'm going to go ahead and give it a chance. No problem at all, right? Well, about 5 days later or something like that, or 7 days later, I noticed the account looked like it was defunct. I'm like,
Uh-oh.
what? And so I went ahead and I was still able to PM the guy. I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, I couldn't pay for my fees or something like that, so eBay shut me down. I'm like, oh, Sketch City, Sketch City. You don't have enough in your account to pay for the end of the month eBay fees? Okay. So I was like, I could like, hopefully you'll still keep us with me. I was like, no, let's cancel this order right now because it wasn't like $1; it was like $4.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not taking that chance when the set was still going to release a few months away. I'm like, just cancel it. And then I ended up paying. It was like $5 to $10 more a box, but I was like, whatever. It was from a seller I knew I would be dependable or most likely. So that's something else. Like reviews for buyers matter too, just because you also don't know how they're going to ship it. I haven't had really any issues when I buy from it and then they ship stuff to me. I haven't had too much crappy sketch sellers when it comes to that. With TCG Player, though, when it comes to the binder cards, sometimes people will straight up throw the card into a damn envelope and that's it. And that's like, they'll have like cardboard and that's it. And I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, for
Come on,
sure.
guys. But that's just one of the cons that we forgot to mention is sometimes that happens. And, a lot of sellers are good. They'll sandwich it between two cardboard. And obviously, when this happens with the envelope, it's because the cards only, like you're buying a couple cards and it's only like $5-6. It's not worth buying a label. You send it out in a letter with stamps. It's more cost effective that way.
Yeah.
But and then I also mentioned this other one with a scammer, or not a scammer, but we've talked about this reseal paranoia and how I didn't pull anything good. It must be resealed.
Oh God.
And I had one of those back during the hype with Pokemon or with Evolutions, and the guy left me a neutral feedback saying, "I'm pretty sure, I don't know definitively, but I'm pretty sure that these boxes were resealed because I didn't pull anything." It's like, well, you spent $400 to open Evolutions boxes. I mean, yeah, you're going to get burned if you opened it. I thought this person was keeping it to keep sealed, but when he opened it, I was like, "What? Really? You really that dumb?" Like, okay, yeah, sure,
He
whatever.
got bad pulls, and he thinks it was resealed because he's
I didn't get much
mad.
better pulls from my pair. I bought them in the same shelf, and it was like the best I got. I think was the Charizard EX.
Yeah.
Like not the Mega, just a regular Charizard EX. Like it's like $10.
Yeah, he was just
Like
mad. I had one like that. I was selling, I think it was base set packs when I had base set packs. I had 3 Charizards and a Venusaur, I think, long crimp. I didn't say that they were heavy or light.
oh,
I just, well, I didn't say if they were heavy or light, but I explained that they were long crimped. They were obviously long crimped, and I had a picture of them on a scale. And I said, weight should not be taken into account for these packs. And so I had one guy message me. He's like, based on the weight, I was supposed to get a hollow, and I didn't pull any hollow. And I was like, well, I showed you the weight of the pack in my picture. If you weigh it, it'll be that exact same weight for you. It's the long crimp. They're obviously going to be a little heavier. I told you I had no idea because I bought them loose from like a guy in St. Louis that just had them stowed away somewhere. So it's like, I bought them and I just put them up for sale. I showed you every piece of information that I had. And I even said, not guaranteed. So he like messaged me like, I want a refund. It's, that I pulled light pack, and then he told me, he was like, I'm mad. I want a refund. I did not expect to get what I got. And so I was like, look, I mean, I told you, and that's all I can do. Sorry. And then I waited for him to like open up a claim, and he never did. So he was just mad. He just sent the message, kind of like your guy. It's like, well, it's like, why are you opening? So
Yeah. I
if
mean,
you're
that's
buying
already a gambler's
packs, like,
policy, anyways.
yeah, if you're buying a pack, like, find someone who's opening a booster box and buy from them. Like, you might be
Yeah.
paying a little more on average than a random loose pack on eBay, but that's because you know it's from a box. And
They can charge that premium because people will buy it.
yep. And like I didn't even know, I just knew they were legit packs. Had no idea if they were heavy or light. Even if one weighed heavy, it's like this. There could be just dirt buildup on the pack. It could be making it a little heavier. I don't know, but
Okay. So,
that's why I got out of sealed.
yeah, that's why we both got out of seal because of that bullshit. And honestly, I haven't had, besides those, it's been mostly smooth sailing for me on eBay, though. But that's like this interaction I had in the last, couple weeks is why I was like, you know what? We haven't done something like this. Let's do something like this. And then you added and you had like a great episode idea, which was this. And I was like, okay, we got to talk about shit buyers. That's got to be included somehow in here because
Yeah.
we got to mention because that's something that, like when you're selling and you selling, that's something you're gonna be experimenting with. Oh yeah, and another thing we forgot to mention with eBay is when I first started out, I was also hit with a scammer almost immediately. I was like, I didn't even have one sale yet, I don't think, under my name. And the first thing this guy was like saying, or this person was like, hey, you want to do this sale off eBay? Immediate red flag if somebody says that. Or like, send me an email. Or like, let's do this through email, right? Now, Nathan and I make it obvious with our eBay accounts that like it literally says IG and then like PBJ collectibles. Like it says IG. Like if you know what that means, which most people do in this day and age, or like what you're like, okay, this guy is straight up saying his Instagram account. So the
Yeah.
whole idea is like my account name is the Instagram account. Maybe it'd be easier if I have it in the profile, like PPJ Collectibles. So it's for people to message me off eBay, and a couple folks have, but a lot of my items aren't worth the trouble right now. So I haven't had it in a while. But like when I sold the EV Heroes collector's box, I actually did that deal off eBay. I did it through Instagram because I saw the guy, I saw his review on eBay. It was high. It was like 100 plus, 100%. He gave me his real Instagram account, his actual name. I could tell it was him. He had like hundreds of posts on his Instagram account. He had himself with like his master's degree this past summer. He got. I'm like, it was totally him, right? I had no concerns with it. So you could save that way, but again, this guy was also trying to get the eBay fees almost completely taken off. I just did it because I was able to get it sold, and I did get more upfront because without the fees. So it was worth it. Although overall, with the taxes, I was probably taking more of not a loss, obviously, but less profit than I would have, or less margins than I would overall. But I mean, I sold that box so I could buy the Lorcana set. It was totally worth it. I don't care that it's $900 a set now. Do not care. I sold it for like $560 off eBay. So I was trying to get, I think, $650 on eBay. I do not care. It is what it is. Which I think brings us kind of to our next point, though. When to sell.
Yep.
Unless you had something else you wanted to say, Nathan.
No, I mean, yeah, it's just frustrating dealing with all that, but yeah, we can touch on the timing here a little bit. We're at an hour and 35 already. But yeah, for me, timing is relative. If you're talking about strategically, if there's any, which a lot of people are in modern right now. If you're looking at anything modern, no matter when it was, whether it was 2015, 2020, 2022, yesterday, the best time to sell modern is essentially as soon as possible.
Yep.
As far as singles go. Now, as far as product and stuff, I don't really want to touch on that aside from like if there's obvious hype. I know there's really strong signals in your head telling you to buy in just because everyone else is. And I think that's a real problem with the hobby. That's kind of what I'm trying to cut out of my collecting right now and downsizing. But if there's a hype, try to sell into the hype, but outside of that, anything modern is just way overprinted now. It was always the case, back when I was buying packs in 2011. Anything that pretty much, even when I bought a booster box back then, I remember buying a Next Destiny's booster box when the EXs came back, and I pulled a full art Mewtwo EX, the best card in the set by far. Like, it was the chase card. Sold that thing for $120, which was pretty crazy. Like, out of any set that came out like the 2 years before that, the most expensive chase card that's ever been in the set was like $60-$70. And then these EXs came back, and Mewtwo EX was so OP that it was going for $120. It's kind of like the Moonbreon. Like, the chase cards of the sets were going for like $200-$300, and all of a sudden Moonbreon comes and he's $500-$600. That was like what this set did. I sold that card immediately and, just waited and bought it back later. So
yeah,
that's how it is today as well. These cards are so produced. Scarcity isn't there. You want to sell into the hype like right from the get-go. And if you really like the card, just buy it back a couple months later when, the hype is on to the next thing. If you're talking about like specialty products like Celebrations UPC, Metal Charizard, or something like that, the timing on those is a little shorter, but they still pretty much follow the same cycle. Then when you get into like weird, like limited promos, like the Precious Collection box, like something that never reaches MSRP but stays above, which that was the Celebrations UPC as well. Even if it's like a $150 product and it's selling for $300 on eBay, usually a few months down the line, if you're really wanting to buy into that product, it might not be $150 ever.
No.
But it might dip down to like $250 or something like that. The hype dies down, more people open them, more people get disinterested in them, and then over time, the good products start turning around, like the Eevee Heroes, the Celebrations UPC, stuff like that starts turning around. We saw that with Evolving Skies as well, but that has hype involved, which is really unpredictable. So when you see that, those rare occasions, don't get too attached and just kind of look outside the box. Like, I'm sure a lot of people saw it go up and then sold, and then, of course, we saw it go up even higher. That's just kind of the hype effect, but don't let it get to you. Don't like something just because other people like it. The whole hobby is shouting that you should like this card. Just like what you like, and your instincts will grow over time, and you'll learn these cycles, and you'll learn these products. So that's kind of the best thing that I can, get. If you're looking for something collectible and scarce, just think for a second, like, how many Evolving Skies packs are out there? Like, it's just way overproduced product. And on top of that, just think of all the people who aren't even opening it, that are just keeping it for themselves to sell in the future. It's weird. But one metric I always think about, from Pokemon's existence up until like 2018, I forget how many cards were produced, but That
It was
same,
like 9 million. Or no, no, never mind. Never mind. Sorry. Go ahead.
it was like just under that, but like the amount of cards they produced from like 1999 in the US up until like 2018 or 2019 was the same amount of cards they produced from like 2020 to 2022. Like that is just insane how many more cards are produced. And like people are still like base set booster boxes are still available. Just think of evolving skies in the future, you know. Just think about those things and you'll get better as you're in the hobby and you see these things happen, but it's hard to tell someone when to sell. It's just you got to observe patterns and just kind of explain it that way, I think, you know.
Yeah, because if there were another hype like the pandemic and Logan Paul hype, if there were another one, would people be able to recognize it enough? And would they sell too early? Or would they sell just at the right time? We don't expect to see, I don't expect to see anytime soon anything like the hype that we saw in 2020. But I think it's something that we could see significant increases with the right elements involved. And for those that have, like me, like, yes, I was one of the ones that did come in during the hype. But at the same time, I was in and out of the hobby as well. And I have my own personal Pokemon TCG historian as well, in my on my shoulder, like one little angel, if you can say, like, hey, But overall, though, it's like I kind of have been able to learn from enough with the history and the rough trends with the market, not the numbers. The numerical number doesn't matter necessarily as much when you're trying to analyze the history. Like growth, obviously, is important to understand, but you're looking at elements and certain factors that are the precipice and create a hype. And that's something where when you're trying to look at those factors, being able to know the right time at which to sell, you have to be willing to sell, not wait for another time in 5 years where we might have another hype, may or may not have another hype. At a certain point, if the factors are at play that are creating a hype, even let's say 50% of the Logan Paul hype, you sell.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, you sell. You buy it back. Not everything. If there's certain things that like you just have to have. But if there's certain cards that like what your profit margin is, and it's pretty significant, and there's multiple cards like that, you take the money. You don't wait. That's gambling. What you're doing is more or less is gambling at that point with this. These aren't stocks, right? This isn't Wall Street. There's a lot of volatility. You take that guaranteed money if it's at something any close to a hype.
And
yeah.
The longer you do it too, the less of a situation you'll be in to sell. If you're buying into the hype, you're really dangerous territory. Because if it goes much higher, it's like, well, is it going to keep going up or do I sell? You're much more emotionally tied to that because it's recent. If you're in the hobby over time and you believe in it, kind of like I was, I had all these crazy cards before the hype. So during the hype, like, yeah, I could have made a ton of money and like bought them back for much cheaper, with the hindsight, of course. But it's like I didn't really feel the pressure to sell because I had these cards when they were worth a tenth of what they were. I liked it. I liked the cards for what they were, not really the money factor. So once again, it goes back to if you're in it for the right reasons, it pays off. If the market crashes, well, you don't really care. Like, it's important to you because you care about those things. It's cool to have. if the money goes up, you still don't really care because you're not in it for the money. You have an option of making a ton of money, but
Mm-hmm.
you just like it for what it is. So, yeah, over time, as you learn these patterns and products and product releases, and you get the eye for what's a good product or an eye for what's a good card, um, it all adds up. It's a snowball effect. You just kind of have to train yourself and, yeah, just be patient, like you are with your Lurkana set, or with all these people shouting at you like, "Oh, this is gonna be the best set. Look at this card. This is the best alt art ever." It's like, yeah, like this month, but what about next month when the next set comes
Yeah.
out and they have the next alt art? you know, so
Yeah, I
just
think
beware.
in addition to the hype, which was important to go into, there's also, and we'll probably go back to that here in a second, but um, it's also a situation you've mentioned it before. In your case, you mentioned with the 20th anniversary festa, and you don't necessarily regret it even then because you were going towards something else. Now you've learned kind of, I think you've learned from that as well. But what I could apply to with that story is, so I sold multiple things in order to afford the Lorcana set. One was the Eevee Hero sealed, whatever. I also had to sell some of my AR set. I sold pretty much all of my AR set besides two tens, the AR4 and the AR5. I sold everything else because I had to do it in order to afford the Lorcana set and the grading fees. There was no other way I was going to be able to get it, unfortunately. It's just, it's something I had to do. And, we I already mentioned how the EV Year Hero is now $200 more than what I sold for it. And in addition to that, I had to take a big L on the AAR cards, which, yes, I love them. I did, but I also had them raw. And ultimately, the intention of that was to eventually sell as a set down the road. Now, some of them were pretty close. Like the AR3, I ended up paying pretty cheap for. But there was another one of the AR cards. I forget which one it was. The AR1. I ended up taking like $150 loss because I had to take the trade value. So I did buy higher. It was going for lower. So it was one of those things where I had to take the L, but it was worth it because it went towards something like Disney Lorcana, something with good fundamentals. Now, we've mentioned before with the good factor, like the 5 factors I kind of mentioned to go earlier. Obviously, one scarcity, other ones are history, Pokemon. So if it checks off everything, and that's why you're trading certain things in your collection to go for another card like that or another item like that within the hobby, then it's probably worth it. Like if you think it's worth it at that point to sell for something else that you have more interest and enjoyment towards in the hobby, I think it's worth going for it. Even if it's something that isn't necessarily as lucrative as what the Lorcana set will be. Say, I don't know, you're selling the Umbreon Alt Art VMAX, for example, like a great card, great artwork, all of that. And you're selling it to go after, let's say, a first edition PSA 9 or PSA 10 Moonbreon from the Neo sets.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the scarcity factor, you have all of these other factors working for it, where it's definitely going to do well if you're concerned about price, but it's also great artwork. It's got all these other factors working for it, but you're moving to something with higher on your priority list, and it's worth it to you. So because of that, it's worth it to make those moves. Not advocating to do it, and sometimes you're just forced to sell because financial times hit hard, and those times suck. I've been there, and it's something to where you never want to be in a situation where you have to. But if it's something where you want to, I think it's worth it because it's about what you enjoy in the hobby. Obviously, don't put yourself in a financial hardship by going to that point, but I think it's something worth it at that point personally.
Yep. Yep. It's hard to put a pinpoint on it, and Yeah, pretty much all the things that I've sold or regret selling, like you said, I put right back into the hobby and got something else with. So it ended up working out. That's what I'm doing as we speak. I've been doing it since day one, doing it right now, selling things to potentially upgrade or buy another Grail. Um, but yeah, that's the beauty of it. Um, Over time, you collect what you like, building up an inventory, trading, upgrading, selling, buying more. That's all like a snowball effect that just keeps growing. But the only other thing I was going to mention that you were talking about is for the hype situation. Like, that's the beauty of it. It's like now that most people have seen that hype and have lived through that hype and are aware of it, it's like when it happens again, more people will be selling as things go up. So it's almost a natural way of preventing it from happening in the first place. As things go up, people are going to be like, "Oh, it's going to crash tomorrow," because we saw what happened in 2020. Things went high, things came crashing down. So just with that knowledge, more people are going to be selling on the way up, and just kind of make it a more slow, healthier growth. We're not going to see it happen as fast, but like with the Lorcana cards right now, it's just a slow creep up. People thought it was hyped, came down a little bit. As they go up now, they're going up a lot slower because, people are selling as they go up. Same thing's going to happen with every product, like Evolving Skies booster boxes. They can't really take off a crazy amount much more because they're already hyped, but the higher it ticks up, the more sellers there are, and it kind of keeps it at bay. So, yeah, who knows if we'll ever see a hype like that in Pokemon again.
Well, you mentioned
Yeah.
also a good thing too with how much modern crap that's being kept sealed, or modern stuff. I don't say it's crap, but crap in quantities, I guess. With that, it's like, will we see a quicker normalization of the market? Will it be a burn rate, a mass burn rate of certain products that actually make it to where they are actually worth their value? Maybe not the hype value, but they are worth their value that they might be going for. Because there's a burn rate of people opening those sets. You kind
Yeah.
of saw that with evolutions, for example.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I was gonna say something else, but I forgot.
That was on me. My bad.
No, like you saying something made me think of something else, but
Okay.
can't exactly remember. Oh, I was just gonna say I remember now. It's if there is another hype, I think it's going to be a slower hype, but a healthier hype for WotC and older stuff. There is an awfully lot of it. That's why we saw it kind of crash and kind of not doing so hot now. But the modern is definitely in a hype. It's fun, it's exciting, it's new. Maybe it'll continue. This is just a new norm because people just love Pokemon so much. They're just opening whatever Pokemon throws at them. That's awesome. But that's not really a hype then. That's just the normal interest. People are really interested and having fun with Pokemon. So if there's any hype, like sudden market shifts, I think it's going to be the return of WotC and stuff like that as people get older and, more established and whatnot. But
Yeah. I was just since you said that, it also reminded me that I forget now. Now I forget what I was going
well, since you said that, I remember.
to say. No, so something about the hype. In addition to the hype, it was they've seen it before. Um, I completely forgot my train of thought at that point. Eh,
Oh, well,
but yeah,
maybe you'll think of it in a
yeah,
minute.
yeah. No, there was something though. I just couldn't remember. But yeah.
But yeah, I guess we better hop into the question. I guess we'll leave it at
Mm-hmm.
just your question because we're running on time, but yeah, if you guys have questions or anything, reach out to us. Like I said, I'm willing to help with the GSP situation and any other questions you have, but yeah, just let us know. But for the question, I think Phillip had a good one for us to talk on to close it out.
Yep, I have it. What sparks your love for collecting and what keeps you going?
Well, my love for collecting, what sparked it? I really don't know because it was such a long time ago. It made me excited to hear the question because just today, like literally this morning, I saw a Facebook memory where I I posted a winning lottery ticket, and it was like the only lottery ticket I ever bought, and I won $100 on it. And one of my friends commented on it. It's like, this was 10 years ago. He's just being dumb. He's like, I know you're going to buy Pokemon, but how much you going to give me? And smiley face and stuff like that. So this was like 10 years ago. My friends knew me as the guy who bought Pokemon. And that's when I'd go to Walmart and buy them off the rack. So thinking back to those times, I think it's just that experience that a lot of people are doing with Modern now. Just the experience of going and picking up a pack and opening it. Yeah, it's just fun. It was like me and my friend Taylor, my friend Jake, Todd, like pretty much this ultimate Frisbee group that we would play in. Another Nathan, last name Caboose. We'd always call him Caboose. But we'd play games. We'd hang out. We'd play ultimate Frisbee. And shout out to Taylor Brakefield and old Jake Doyle. Me and those two guys were actively collecting. We'd go and buy the packs, and it was just fun to open. We started a binder and would trade, and we'd have a binder of just the basic hollows. So I think that was it. And I think that spawned off of us playing the games, because we would hang out at the park after Frisbee and battle each other on Diamond and Pearl. And then we're like, let's go buy a Pokemon pack. And I remember going to Frisbee, stopping by Walmart first and hey, I bought a pack. You want to see what I opened? Just, hanging out in those summer days when you didn't have anything to do except run around town and hang out at the park. That's what we did for fun. So it's continued ever since.
What sparked? Are you done?
Yeah.
I just realized. Okay.
Yeah, that's what sparked it, and I guess I didn't really answer how it continued, but
yeah, I realized that after I interrupted you.
I mean, I'll keep it short. I mean, just the joy of I've always been a collecting type person. My grandma and grandpa were into coins, so I always thought it was cool to collect coins. I would, sorry about that beeping. I would collect rocks just because I thought they looked cool. And so when I started to, buy Pokemon packs for fun and just started collecting them, then I started to just dig into the hobby. I set my goals. My original first huge goal was to have every ultra rare ever printed, which fit inside a 360 binder back then. With the next Destinies and those sets that I was opening upon release, they started having more and more ultra rares, and it started getting ridiculous. I kind of saw the writing on the wall and was like, well, there's just too many now. So then I just set a next goal, and my next goal, and my next goal. Going for the gold stars was a goal. Having first edition base jungle fossil was a goal at one point. every goal I've made, I've slowly accomplished and just made a new one, and yeah, that's what keeps me going. Now my goal is to sell the stack of cards and figure out what I actually want to keep, and I'll probably start a new goal after that.
Yeah. So as far as my love for collecting would probably have been same as you, pretty much. My grandpa was into coin collecting, and even my dad collected a little bit too with coins. And that was like the first thing I started remembering. The first thing I remember collecting were the 50 state quarters. It was, I
Me
feel like it was,
too.
yeah. Hey, look
I
at that.
forgot about that, but my mom
Yeah,
and
they had
grandma
the
had those little folders, and
yep. Everybody had the folders where you had to smash the thing with a piece of metal to get the damn quarter in. Right? I know I'm not the only one.
oh yeah,
Like my dad had like he is a machinist, so he had like this heavy piece of metal, and that was the only way to get the damn thing in. I mean, I was a kid, so I couldn't get it in then, but like even he was having issues getting it in, so he just took one of those things, we just smashed the thing,
just couldn't
and
get in.
yeah, I later remember end up using some of those to actually like spend money whenever I was like 12 or 13 or something like that. But I ended up buying most of the proof sets later on, anyways. But um, that was one of the first thing, and then obviously some silver dollars. But that kind of was the first thing I remember collecting, and then shortly thereafter, there was Pokemon, and then there was the cards. Well, actually, Pokemon would have came before. When because it's 99.
Do what?
State quarters began in 99. So
Yeah, I think so.
it was kind of one of those things where it was both at once is really what it was when it came to the collection. But I remember that was one of the first things for collecting, and I remember my grandpa even before then he would give me like these old coins to go through. That's whenever I was a younger kid, and I used to love seeing like the older Morgan Peace dollars, just looking like, well, this is so old, you know. I
Hmm.
just thought that was cool, and I guess there was just always this need for me to collect. I guess after, like, there's definitely a level of completionist involved, and like in such completionist, even as a younger kid, and that went with Pokemon, but I didn't have the need to like get the entire base set. It was just like, we'll see what we can do because we were kids. We didn't. eBay was literally like a year old at that point, and I started using eBay to buy coins and cards. That's how I got some of my Japanese cards. That's how I got all my Japanese Yu-Gi-Oh cards back in the early 2000s. But it was one of those things where it wasn't easy for a kid to get like the missing singles. Like there wasn't a TCG player. Like getting missing. The only way was just to keep on opening packs
Yeah.
for a kid, and that fed my collection goals and collecting habits, and that just kind of kept on going from there, one thing to another. Then it was Yu-Gi-Oh. But Yu-Gi-Oh it was more about playing than collecting, but I still enjoyed collecting some of the cards too, and that just kept on going. Now you see one of the things I do is comics. Now we got comics, we got a little bit of coins, books, Pokemon cards. I mean, it's a little bit of everything. And now, what keeps me going? A lot of it is passion. Passion towards the hobbies and interests that I currently have. Some of it is tied to nostalgia. Like I think that is a lot of us. It's tied to nostalgia. It's tied to this innocence that we have and this like innate good that we all have that we get out of ourselves and just life in general. I think that what keeps me going is that passion and that feeling and just hitting those goals once you're satisfied. Once you obtain them, there's a sense of accomplishment when you obtain that, especially with your favorite hobbies. So I guess the too long didn't read aspect, didn't listen, was grandparents and dad with coins and got me started, keeps me going is passion in the hobby.
Yep. And we're both pretty similar with that. And yeah, I went on to Yu-Gi-Oh too, and yeah, I even had some comics and
Oh, I
Hot
remember.
Wheels. What were you gonna say?
Okay, so go ahead and finish what you're going to say because I'm writing it down.
Oh, that was it. We're just very similar with it.
Okay. Okay. So the next thing I was going to say is the catalyst of the next hype, if it isn't steady, so it's going to be a slow trickle. I said this in another episode as well, but I think the next big catalyst for potential hype for Pokemon is going to be a nostalgia boom from something like a Stranger Things show, something that is a um, cultural phenomenon and basically captures a lot of individuals within our generation. Stranger Things, the biggest thing is the '80s nostalgia boom, which we saw beginning about a decade ago, and we're still seeing it. But surprise, surprise, I know we don't want to think about it, but yeah, we're getting that age where the nostalgia boom's coming for the '90s. We are already seeing it. The fashion, the popular haircuts, even a lot of renewed interest of a lot of bands from the era, like more so than just like how we grew up with like Nirvana and stuff. Like there's a big cultural aspect that can be created and hype that can be created for something like Stranger Things. Like think about all the things like so in the last season you had Metallica. So Metallica had this like huge interest from Gen Z. Literally 4 days after the Stranger Things show, I saw somebody wearing the traditional Metallica all black with like the white Metallica sign. I'm just saying, it's if there's something that's going to happen to create a hype, it's going to be that factored in with maybe something else, something with another YouTube personality or maybe a celebrity who's really into it.
Okay.
I think there's going to be those factors that are going to be the next catalyst.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about the '90s. Like I saw, there was a girl the other day, probably in high school, like mid upper teens, wearing a Nirvana shirt. I'm like, oh yeah,
which
I'm sure she loves Nirvana.
I mean, well, back when we were in high school, if you wore a shirt like that, you'd best be able to recite every song on the Nevermind album, or else you'd be called a damn poser. But you know how it was. But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I saw a guy that literally came in like he was in Dawson's Creek, like he was dressed like that. He had the long hair, peaked at the middle. You know, the one if you ever seen the X Files first season, David Duchovny has the same haircut. It was the same one with that Leonardo DiCaprio had during like Titanic and stuff. You know the one where like the part in the middle, he had that haircut. He had the washed baggy jeans with so that was had some like not a few holes but nothing major, and he had like the older like cheaper looking just like this light long sleeve shirt like mixed with like kind of like a sweater, like everything said '90s. I was like, whoa, hey, what year is it? Yeah, or as if like but all the talk to the hand, all that crap. I'm sure is going to be made big by some show. It's going to happen. It's only a matter of time of when it's going to happen. Like I said, the '80s had have the nostalgia boom for the '80s has been massive in the last decade, and we are going to see the same thing for millennials. And I would say it's probably going to have a larger impact because we were the generation that came with the internet. I grew up with the internet. So I could see it having a potential larger effect.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what it would take or what it would be, but I think we'll see it again.
Yep, I do.
Even if none of that happens and it's like 20, 30 years down the road, like people will forget, what happened in 2020.
Yeah.
People will know and hear about it and live through it, but time
potential
fades
anniversaries,
away.
like the 50th anniversary for Pokemon, maybe, stuff like that could be a perfect storm as well. But
yeah. Anyway, we better wrap it up. We've been going a lot longer than I thought we would, but if you guys are still listening, thank you. You guys are the true ones. If you leave a comment that says banana down below, I'll give you guys. I'll give away something.
I was about to say we got to say something that only if you made it to the final minute you would know.
Yeah. So comment down below banana, and I'll send you a graded card within the next 2 weeks. See if anyone does it. All right. We'll catch y'all later.
Until next time.
Right,
See you
peace.
later.